remember to click like, subscribe, the bell notification, and whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support us.
Chou Denshi Bioman!
Ooh, camera's rolling. What's up, guys? I am the Kaiju no Kami, and today, what am I reviewing? Oh yeah, that's right. I'm reviewing Chou Denshi Bioman from 1984. Yeah, this is gonna be a good one to talk about. Oh yeah. Chou Denshi Bioman was the 1984 follow-up to Kagaku Sentai Dynaman. Bioman's early productions seem to be pretty straightforward, as there doesn't appear to be anything special to have occurred during the filming of the series, at least initially. I'll get more into that as I go along. It is often praised for defying the Sentai formula, as there are no monsters who grow big upon defeat, it is the first series to have a female Yellow Ranger, and for the killing off of a Ranger. Of course, defying an established formula doesn't necessarily mean it's perfect or great. What led to this change in cast members? Well, let's take a look at the heroes to find out. The heroes. Unlike with Dynaman and Changeman, the Rangers here are given a backstory to explain why they have been chosen to be the heroes of this universe. Hundreds of years ago, the lone survivor of the bioplanet, Peebo, came to the most beautiful planet in the universe, Earth. The show's words, not mine. Peebo was not alone, as a giant robot known as Robo journeyed with him, and together they doused several humans with bioparticles, so that when evil would arise, those individuals would be called upon to help save their planet. Everything remained peaceful until 1984, when the New Gear Empire emerged, and the individuals whose bloodline contains the bioparticles are called into action to stop them. To start, we have... Hero Go, played by Ryosuke Sakamoto. Go was supposed to pilot Japan's first space shuttle until New Gear attacked, which caused him to take the role of Red One instead. He is your normal leader type, always trying to see the brighter side of the spectrum. In addition, the bioparticles in his system give him the ability to speak to animals, so he will often use them to scout questionable locations for him.
What's that? You said a man is stuck in a tree, and he needs my help? Part of you would rather leave him there because he's a bit of a dick?
Regrettably, Go is quite one-dimensional, and it isn't until the last few episodes of the show that the writers actually tried to give him a personality. Thus, I am unable to really go into more detail on his character without treading into spoiler territory. All I will say on the matter is that it was a little too late for it to make much of a difference, as my decision on him as a whole had already been made. This last bit does keep him from being my least favorite Ranger, though. Oh. And he is as good at stealth as the average gamer playing Metal Gear Solid. Naoto Ota brings a nice personality to the table with Shingo Takasugi. Shingo was a high school baseball player who got cold feet during an examination due to his fear of being injured. As such, he quit baseball and eventually went on to be a race car driver. Because that makes so much sense. But it doesn't matter, because he had to leave that job as well after he was caught in action by Peebo and Robo. Shingo has a really energetic personality, as he will go above and beyond the call of duty if it means the defeat of the New Gear Empire. He is probably my second favorite Ranger, as he does have some of the more memorable episodes of the show. On the downside, he is pretty gullible and will easily doubt his own abilities without the others there to reassure him. For example, there was a moment when he destroyed a bunch of mecha humans, but because a child was tricked into thinking one of them was his father, he berates Shingo for killing his father. Shingo easily believes him, finding himself unable to fight properly in the next battle. My favorite moment with him, though, is when the villains are trying to turn a city into Vice City, and Shingo acts as a gangster to attract their attention. Ryuta Nambara is our next ranger. Akita Osuga plays this water sportsman who was a delinquent in his youth. Nanbara is very outgoing but rarely ever shines. His greatest moment was when he was trying to convince an evil teenager named Prince he shouldn't be evil just because his father is.
まだ子供のくせにどうしてそんなひどいことをするんだ。子供じゃない。17歳大人だ。お前にだって母さんはいるだろう。
Are you my mommy?
Oh, and look at Prince. He has like the coolest hairstyle ever. Or is it the worst hairstyle ever? I can't tell.
Are you my mommy?
Our Pink Ranger is Hikaru Katsuragi. She is played by Michiko Makino. Hikaru was a sickly child who wants to be a musician, and that is about it. She's here because she needs to be. She is easily the weakest of the main Ranger cast, and the naive token character who also often becomes a damsel in distress. Hey, check this out. You see this? Well, part of this technically. This is Link. Link is cardboard. Link has a shield layer, a body layer, and a back layer for the display piece. He has more layers than Pink 5. Now this is where things get interesting, kind of. Sun Vulcan was made infamous because the Red Ranger left the team to work for NASA. In this series we go through 2 Yellow Rangers because one of them, well, dies. The first was Mika Kozumi, played by Yuki Yajima. There are some rumors that say Yajima was unhappy with her role and due to issues with her attitude, she was hard to work with and then quit the show. It is unknown if this is actually true, but the smug, snotty attitude she portrayed on screen as Mika may confirm this, as Mika seems to be an extremely unhappy individual who would rather be alone than be part of the team. This woman with the most shiniest pants ever Anyway, as I was saying, she wants to take wildlife photos in Africa because her brother died before he was able to do so. Funny and tragic that she should also die before accomplishing this task. I wish I could say Mika's death was horrifying, but her attitude made her a very unlikable character, and we never really got to see her grow up. It doesn't help that this episode that features her death has her transformed in yellow for the entire time, so we never actually get to see her die, which I feel diminishes the tragedy.
ミカがさよならと言ってるんだ。ミカの死を乗り越えて戦えと言っているんだ。
Now this is where things get weird because no one knows exactly what happened to the actress. She just told everyone she wasn't going to come back and that was it. No one has ever heard from her since. It's kind of scary when you think about it because she just like poof, disappeared as if she never existed at all in the acting community. No one knows what happened to her even to this day. She's probably just hiding out somewhere, living a happy life with a family, but it is kind of weird how that this whole thing just occurred. Well, whatever the case, at least it did lead to some good things. Mainly Jun Yabuki, who replacement actress Sumiko Tanaka brought delight and energy to the role of an archer who gives up her dream of being in the Hunger Games, Olympics, in order to save the world. Although they might as well just be the Hunger Games with how some countries treat the Olympics. Jun is a fun and engaging character who gets along with the rest of the team instantly and becomes my favorite member of the group. She is strong and independent, able to take care of herself, which can sometimes also be her own undoing. Like Shingo, she gets a lot of memorable episodes to her name, be it the one with her archery captain questioning her decisions to one where she beats the crap out of a nature boy who then wants to marry her. Or this episode where Jun puts the bomb in Bombshell. As far as the team efforts go, there isn't too much to say. Their suits aren't all that great, although I do like the circuitry look on their chests. Their helmets are cool when they light up, and I do like that they have electronic brains that will tell them how to do certain moves and control all their abilities. So that's actually kind of cool and brings a nice touch as to why they can do whatever they want. They all have normal guns and swords that is standard fare for these shows. Sometimes they will use Jun's bow to make a cannon type weapon, other times it is just combining their strength of their swords or using their heads. I understand Japan loves their metaphors and symbolism, but come on guys, taking the concept of using your head to win the battle literally. This show is stupid. But hey, it's Sentai. In the second half of the series, they acquire upgrades. Kind of in name only because there's no physical appearance in their upgrades. They just say they do. Kind of like a digital copy. The one thing I did like is that there were a couple of episodes where they fought the villains at night and in spirit worlds. So they had their swords lit up like they were lightsabers. Sure, they were pretty much just tubes of light up plastic, but it still looked pretty awesome in motion and the idea was illuminating.
Thank you very much.
As I mentioned before, the lone survivor to the bioplanet was Peebo, who acts as the Ranger's mentor. He was originally a research assistant who made friends with children until the planet was destroyed in a great war between two opposing viewpoints. That sounds quite familiar right now. Maybe a little too familiar. Peebo isn't a bad character. He does help out on the battlefield when absolutely necessary. He can get a little too whiny at times though, especially when it came to finding out that an anti-bio warrior was still alive.
Oi, Peebo!
At least he didn't piss himself like Gator did in the next series. Lastly, Peebo was voiced by anime voice actress Yoshiko Ota, who is best known as the voice of Nobita in the first Doraemon series, along with Kimba the White Lion, Kin Ono in Ranma 1/2, and Kijo in Inuyasha. The villains. The role of the villains in this series is given to the New Gear Empire, who is about as exciting to watch as Gears turning. Although Gears sometimes can be interesting to watch. To start, we have their leader who proclaims himself as the greatest scientist in the history of mankind, Dr. Man. Oh yeah, New Gear Empire is quite sexist too. What's a man? What's a man? What's a man? What's a man? He was a scientist who accidentally turned himself into a machine and went crazy from it. So he decided to conquer the world. Sounds legit.
私の頭脳はコンピューターより早く計算できるようになったのだ。どんどん向上していくのだ。私は世界一の科学者になるのだ。地球の歴史で最高の天才になるのだ。
There's not much to this character, although he does show some humanity once in a while, especially towards his son, who he hasn't seen since the accident. As far as main leaders go, he's about average. Better than what we had in Changeman, but nowhere near as interesting as Professor Bias from Liveman. Next, we have Dr. Man's trio of generals known as the Big Three. They are Mason, Farah, and Monster. Monster is the only one of the trio that stands out on his own as his actor. Wrestler Strong Congo is the only one who actually puts in any effort into his acting. The other two actors are as boring and lifeless as the characters they portray. Look, I understand you are playing robots, but it doesn't mean you have to give us a mechanical performance. Some of my favorite scenes with Monster include this one. This one is fun too.
やはり真打ちは最後に登場だ。いよいよモンスター様の出番だぞ。お、僕の出番はどこ行っちゃったんでしょう。
Oh, and this one is great.
強やれ。
And then of course, I don't know what's exactly happening in this one, but this one is funny too. Oh, and then we have this one. And this one. One more, come on. You guys can take one more, right? Hilarious stuff. I love this guy. He is this show's saving grace. It doesn't matter what's happening. If Monster is on screen, I am usually having fun. When it's Pharaoh or Mason, yeah, you can hear a pin drop. Unlike the series before and after it, Bioman does not feature your normal so-called monster of the week. Instead, these 6 creatures, known as the Beastnoids, are underlings to the big 3. They are a jester-looking bot with 3 heads known as Sigorn, a lizard-type monster called Aquagar, a blob creature with a single eye known as Metzler, Juo, who looks like a frog and a gorilla combined, and a bird-like creature named Macer.
For the man!
With the exception of Jewel, the Beastnoids will rotate turns helping Farah and Mason with their plots. Jewel only works with Monster, as they are best buddies. Farah Cat is Farah's personal servant. Farah Cat is so forgettable though that even the villains forget she is there. For instance, in one of the last episodes, Mason says this despite Farah Cat being right in front of him. What is interesting is that these 6 never grow upon defeat, as no monsters grow in this series. Instead, there are giant mechs that are sent out each episode for the Rangers to battle. On one hand, I have to applaud Toei for trying something completely new and original at the time. On the other, you really start to miss the personalities that a monster of the week would bring to each episode. I can only watch Sigorn use his car controlling abilities or Metzler do his best Reed Richards impersonation so many times before I get bored. So what about these giant mechs that are sent out each episode? Do they also bring something new to the table? Sadly, no. They are just mindless robots. So they don't have any personalities, they don't talk, they don't crack jokes, nothing at all. There are some really cool looking ones, as I love the designs for Skeleton Cons and Ghost Cons. But most of them are pretty forgettable. In fact, I almost forgot about this one that made me think of a certain Toho monster. Halfway through the show, Dr. Man's final giant mech is destroyed, so he sends out a new army of machines that are piloted by one of the big 3 called a Megas. Regrettably, we didn't get a Megas that looked like this though. Sad days. My favorite of these ones are Satan Megas and Amazon Megas. The grunts this series are known as mecha clones. There's nothing really amazing with them, outside of their color scheme, which I do like. The silvers and gray really pop with the black. I also do like how their heads will have an outer shell that will break apart during battle. Crack in the middle of battle, not in your hand. Lastly, a final villain makes his appearance during the last quarter of the show, known as Hunter Silva. He is an assassin created by the Anti-Bio League to destroy bioparticles. He comes to Earth looking for his lost mech, Balzion, which means he has to destroy Bioman in the process, as that is what his programming tells him to do.
バイオマンはバイオ星人じゃない。
バイオ粒子反応あり。
それは僕とバイオロボがずっと昔。
バイオ粒子反応あり。
だから言ってるじゃないか。
バイオ粒子反応を持つ者は全て破壊する。
Silver's premiere is interesting as it adds a third party who refuses to join Dr. Man, only for him to become a burden on the series. He will just randomly show up in an episode, spout his one-line bullcrap, then he will leave because either he will sense Balzion or New Gear will interfere. It feels like the writers had no idea what they wanted to do with him. My theory is that they still had 15 episodes left and had no stories left to tell with New Gear Empire, so they threw Silva together as a means to pad out the episode. I will get more into this later, but Bioman is a perfect example of a show that doesn't have enough momentum to last a full year. The mecha! Like all the other Sentai series up to this point, there's only one mecha, and that is Bio-Robo. Bio-Robo is compiled of two jets known as Biojet 1 and Biojet 2 that are stored in a bigger base known as Bio-Dragon. There's nothing special at all, although I don't think this series seems to understand how scale works. The jets will fly by monsters and look extremely tiny, yet somehow they are able to grow bigger when they transform into Bio-Robo. There will be episodes where Bio-Robo is sitting in front of mountains that are bigger than it, yet the moment it stands up, it is 3 times the size of the mountains. At least he didn't fall off a mountain and have to hang on for dear life. Negatives aside, the fights with the giant mecha and megas aren't bad. There are some solid battles to be found despite knowing how the battles are going to end. I do think this fight is a real standout. This one against Turtle Cons is quite good too, due to the moveset of the mech. The hard part comes to getting excited for a mech battle when the Rangers are just fighting some lifeless robot. Once again, a lot is lost without the individuality of your standard monster of the week. The effects and music. The effects in this show are pretty hit or miss. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I do have to give a lot of credit to the camera work, as usual. Let me start by saying this show has a very boring opening theme from composer Kase Kunihiko. It's not a bad song, it just doesn't work for battle music. This is a common issue this show faces with its soundtrack. For example, I really like this track here when it's used for sneaking music. But then it just doesn't work as battle music. It doesn't help matters that there seems to be very little in the way of energy during the fight scenes, as the explosions are kept to a bare minimum. I'm starting to wonder if they ran out their explosions budget in Dynaman and didn't have the money to actually afford many explosions in this series. There are some cool effects, and the camera work will have its moments, like this bit over a waterfall area. Ultimately though, I was left bored most of the time. You know there is a problem when you look forward to hearing Bionic Soldiers play at the end of the episode, as it means you can finally move on to the next. Bionic Soldiers is playing? Oh yes! Now I can move on to the next episode, which will hopefully be interesting. You can also see the wires, and there is a lot of stock footage when battling the mecha clones. As I mentioned before, I did like the bits with the not lightsabers, and there were some cool fights, just nothing groundbreaking or active. It is kind of funny to think about that a show about energy lacks it. The episodes to Bioman kind of just exist. There's nothing downright dreadful that you can't stomach to watch. There's just nothing spectacular either. They're just there. They're mediocre, they're forgettable. Most of all, they're just boring, and that is the worst crime of all. For a series that changed up the formula, it just plays everything else so safe. When Mika dies, you would think that the other Rangers would be reluctant to having to replace the team member they just lost. They could have spent a couple of episodes searching for a new Yellow 4. Instead, everything comes their way and we get June being part of the team by the halfway point to the next episode. My problem is how easygoing the rest of the team is after losing their comrade. It's like they didn't even actually care for her, as she could easily be replaced. I feel like Toei was too scared to turn this into an arc and have it be several episodes before we got a new Yellow 4. It happens again with the villains. There's an episode where the big three assassinate Dr. Man, or at least believe they have. He is back by the halfway point. Why? Why not have this be an arc for several episodes too? Why not have the big three work on their own and lose, realizing that they made a mistake by killing their creator, who then shows up laughing, belittling them for thinking they were capable of working on their own? There was so much potential this show could have continued on with had Toei not gotten cold feet. Every episode seems like it has to be completely back to status quo by the end of the story. Why? This is stupid. Use your storytelling to the fullest. Then we have the Silver plotline, which I already talked about. Which is... oh, shoot. Okay, calm down. Peace of mind. Quiet. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Were there any episodes that I did like? Yes. Yes, there were. Kind of. There is an episode titled Bloop, Attack of the Puppet, that I did enjoy. It's about Dr. Man's giant mech Piranha-Khan's diamond weapon can't handle the stress of using its attacks underwater, as Dr. Man wants to destroy nuclear subs to force the planet into a war. From here, he goes after a crown jewel diamond that is supposed to be strong enough to power his beast. It's not the most plot-heavy episode, but I enjoyed it because it is a creative one. Piranha-Khan's brings a bunch of store mannequins to life and we get to watch the Rangers fight them. First off, these things are really creepy and I love it. I'm getting a Condemned Criminal Origins vibe from these. Oh, and I also think of the Autons from Doctor Who.
Whose idea was this? Is it Derek's? Is it? Derek, is this you?
God, I wish I was watching Doctor Who instead. Now that's a real doctor. It's also the first episode to feature a kick-ass night battle. My least favorite episode is titled New Neural Brain. In this episode, Dr. Man creates an artificial intelligence to power his mech Inker Khans. Something goes awry, the brain ends up befriending Pink 5, and then Dr. Man wants it destroyed. Boy, do I hate this episode. It is so freaking stupid. Cue the Pinky and the Brain theme.
Gee, Brain, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Pinky and the Brain, yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane.
Why are you looking at me like that? Come on, the episode set itself up for that joke. A Pink Ranger befriending a Brain? It's not rocket science. The movie. Bioman has a movie. It's strange as the movie actually came out during the summertime instead of right at the beginning of the show as most Sentai movies did back then. Anyway, it's about two kids that have a map that leads to Biobay, so naturally Dr. Man wants it.
Of course!
The Rangers have to protect the children.
Think of the children.
Yeah, lady, that's what the Rangers are doing. It's pretty much your average episode plot extended to a 45-minute runtime for some reason. They at least have an explosion budget in the movie. And Bara Cat for some reason gets her own squad of cat women. The giant mech of the movie, Kanikans, is kind of cool looking, but clearly the two people it takes to move the suit are not coordinated very well. Still, for better or worse, it does do a perfect representation of the show. As you can probably tell, Bioman just didn't do anything for me. I didn't exactly hate the show, but I didn't exactly enjoy it either. It's not bad, it's just not good. I can tell you a couple of episodes that I enjoyed, but nothing that truly wowed me. On the other hand, there wasn't an episode I truly hated, so I guess that is a positive. Nevertheless, I am going to give Bioman a 2 out of 5 grown-ups in spandex. It's not the worst Sentai show I've ever seen, it does have some redeeming qualities. Ultimately, though, if you find yourself struggling through it to get through the first episodes, you might as well move on to something else because there's just not a good enough payoff to make the whole thing worth it. It does get better in its last 7 episodes, but not by much. The characters are bland, the fights are borderline boring at times. I'd say skip it and go to a Sentai series worthy of your time. Until next time, bye.
Me dazzle like a diamond in the rough. Strut my stuff is so shiny.